Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Fiona from Postgraduate Student Association, Hong Kong U.
And I'm Lawrence Tan from Hong Kong University Students' Union, and I'm the president.
And we are the moderators for this today's forum. And our students have long been concerned about the next Vice Chancellor of Hong Kong U. Yeah, since we know that the current professor will not continue his tenure, so the answer is about to release now, and we are happy to invite Professor Mason to give us a speech and talk to us today.
And I would like to give a brief introduction of Professor Matheson. And Professor Matheson is an excellent teacher, medical researcher, and academic leader, and is currently the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry in the University of Bristol. And today he will share his experience and vision with us, as well as the answer of our questions. Yeah. And
now let's begin by inviting Professor Mason to give a speech to all of us, and then you can ask questions.
Thank you very much. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Matheson, as you've heard. I like to be called Peter, I don't like any of this professor stuff, or prof is the worst, so please call me Peter. I want to just say a couple of introductory remarks. First of all, I just want to tell you how honoured and excited I feel to be in the position that I'm now in. As you know, I've been recommended by the selection committee to be the next Vice-Chancellor of Hong Kong University. I consider that a great privilege. I'm very excited about it. I'm very happy to be here to meet with you and to talk to you. And I want to give most of the time that we have available over to you to ask me questions, so I don't want to talk for very long. But I thought I would just cover three things, really. I wanted to just tell you a little bit about myself. I want to tell you a little bit about my initial impressions of Hong Kong U. And then I want to tell you just a few things about some of the things that I would do if my appointment is confirmed later on today. So, first of all, myself. So I'm 54 years old. Probably the same age as many of your parents, maybe older than some of your parents. My own children are older than most of the people in the audience looking around. So I have what we call nature's highlights, I'm the proud father of 2 grown-up children. I currently work in Bristol, as you've heard, and as Lawrence told you, I'm Dean of the Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry. So Bristol has 6 faculties, and medicine and dentistry is the biggest, and each faculty is run as an independent organisation with the dean as the budget holder and the chief academic leader. So the Faculty of Medicine is actually the size of a small university. So although I haven't previously been a Vice-Chancellor running an entire university, the organisation that I run is the same size as some small universities, and so I have some experience of management of large numbers of staff, large numbers of students, both undergraduates and postgraduates, and a lot of administrative experience in doing that. My background is as a medical researcher, so my research group has an international reputation. I'm very proud of the work that we've done. We work on kidney disease, and particularly on proteinuria, so the presence of protein in the urine, which is an important sign of kidney disease, which is a sign that something's wrong in the kidney, and the number of drugs are available to treat that. And we've done a lot of work trying to understand what goes wrong in kidney disease, how the drugs work, and try and develop new drugs. So that work's gone extremely well, and as I say, we have an international reputation in our field, which we're very proud of. I have a lot of other international experience, so I've spent a lot of time teaching in Africa, various different parts of Africa. I've been an examiner in a number of places around the world, including Hong Kong, so I've been a visiting examiner at the Chinese University twice, and I've also examined postgraduate degrees for Hong Kong U. And then last year I was invited to become a member of the University Grants Committee's panel for a thing called the Research Assessment Exercise, which I'm sure you've heard of, which is running next year in Hong Kong. And I've been invited to be a member of the panel to do that assessment. Clearly, if I'm appointed as the Vice-Chancellor of this university, then I can't take part in that panel, so I'll have to resign from that panel. But as it currently stands, I'm a member of the research assessment exercise for Hong Kong for next year. The international experience I have in Africa is an example of the thing that excites me. What excites me is making things happen. I really enjoy taking on a situation that I know nothing very much about, learning about it, understanding it, and trying to change it. And in Uganda, which is the place that I go teaching, that's something that we've achieved with, I think, a great deal of success. So 14 years ago, 3 colleagues and myself went to Uganda for the first time, to a university in a rural part of the country where there are plenty of keen and bright students, but there are very few teachers. And so we provided teaching in a medical undergraduate and postgraduate program, which has led to graduates that are now teaching in the university there. And the main aim of our program was to try and get people to stay in Uganda, because the tendency in Uganda is to do a university degree and then to leave the country. And so our idea was that if we could encourage people to stay, that would solve the problems of this particular university. So that was an example of making something happen in a situation where we had no real prior experience of the culture or the demographics or the rest of it. So I'm sure you will have heard and read that one criticism of me as a candidate for this post is that I don't have enough experience of Hong Kong or of China and of the culture in Asia. I haven't worked in Asia, although I have, as I said earlier on, I visited here as an examiner. So I just give Uganda as an example of the fact that even without cultural experience, you can actually make things happen in a place. And I would portray to you that my lack of experience here is actually an advantage, because I come here with no preconceived ideas, no political affiliations, no baggage, if you like, and I'm able to approach situations with an open mind, to understand from people who know more about it than I do what the issues are, and then to make a decision and a policy and stand by it and exercise it. So I think I consider myself qualified to be Vice-Chancellor on the grounds of my previous experience, on the grounds of my personal qualities. I would, in this post, consider it a priority to defend academic freedom and freedom of speech. I think I have the integrity and the past track record that demonstrates that I'm capable of doing that. That's enough about me. So when I look at Hong Kong University, what do I see? Well, I just see massive opportunities. Asia is regarded as the most exciting place to work in higher education. Everybody says that. Everybody in Europe wants links with China. So everybody in European universities is very keen to try and establish links with China. So teaching links, student and staff exchanges, in some cases even campuses established in China. And the position that Hong Kong University has, being part of China, but in the geographical location that it is, and with the heritage and track record that it has, puts it in a very unique position to cultivate a relationship with mainland China. But I think it's really important that Hong Kong doesn't just confine its aims to China. I think it needs to think globally, it needs to think about other parts of the world, including Europe, but also the United States, Australia, other places in the world. So Hong Kong University needs to take a global approach. And I see fantastic opportunities to do that. You have very high quality students, very high quality staff, a network of highly qualified and influential alumni. So these are fantastic assets for a university. You have your geographical location, you have the cultural situation of being part of China, but still subject to special administrative status for many more years to come. And so a unique place within China, a unique place within Asia. Clearly it's an English-speaking university. If it wasn't an English-speaking university, I wouldn't be here, because I don't yet speak Cantonese or Putonghua. I'm going to have some lessons. I used to be quite good at languages when I was at school, but that was French and German and Latin. I've never tried to learn Chinese languages, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. But I'm not able to speak the language at the moment, so if you have questions in Chinese, I'm going to need somebody to translate them for me. Clearly the language barrier is something that I need to overcome and contemplate. But the opportunities that exist here in Hong Kong University are just stunning. It's a very exciting part of the world, it's a very exciting university, it has massive raw materials, and it's got to use those materials to develop itself. What would I do if my appointment is confirmed? Well, clearly my main challenge in the early part of the job would be getting to know more about the university, getting to know more about the staff, the students, the alumni. I'd be very interested to spend time talking to all of those groups. My plan, if I'm appointed, is to spend the first few months learning, probably the first few years learning, because I have a lot to learn about the issues as seen by staff, students and alumni here. And I would like to engage with student bodies as part of that, and clearly you have elected representatives that would necessarily be your spokespeople, but as a general approach, I'm very interested in the opinion of anybody who's part of the university. So I can't promise I would always agree with you, but I can promise that I would always listen to you. So I would engage in the early months with all of you, and I know that there are some issues which I guess will form the focus of your questions. I think I've probably talked for long enough. I'm very excited to be in the position that I now find myself. Maybe later today I'll know a bit more about my future, but for now that's what I'm going to say, and I'll invite you to ask me any questions.
Before you ask the questions, maybe
sure.
we should ask, because for the Q&A questions, maybe you briefly introduce yourself first and then make your questions clear and specified, and you may raise your hand if you want to ask questions. So.
I'm Aloysius. I'm a postgraduate research student in the School of Biological Sciences.
Hi, Aloysius.
So, firstly, congratulations, sir. And then...
It's a bit too soon for congratulations.
My question is, Hong Kong U is a very research-intensive university, and do you have any personal plans of improving the quality of research? I'm not deliberating that we are having a good or a bad quality, but it's a fact that we haven't had like Nobel laureates from Hong Kong U. Yeah. So do you have any personal plans of implementing any sort of ideas?
Yeah, so the quick answer is yes. Clearly a research-intensive university has to demonstrate its research power in various ways, and I firmly believe in the place of research in promoting the qualities of any university. I believe that research and teaching are interdependent. Many of the best teachers are also the best researchers. I think having prominent researchers is an important way of attracting and keeping the best staff, and also attracting the best students. So you cannot underestimate the value of research to an organisation like this one. Financially, research doesn't make money usually for most universities. Universities make their money largely through teaching. So teaching subsidises research, and that sometimes causes some competition between teaching and research. I think you need both. I think you have to accept that teaching is the best way of generating income and research is the best way of generating prestige. So absolutely important to cherish research and to promote it. How do you go about that? Well, you can do it in a couple of ways. You can either do it by nurturing people that are here already. So one of the things that, if I'm appointed to this job, the bit I'm looking forward to most would be going around the university, identifying the stars. I'd like to know, so for my own university now, I know who the stars are. Some of them are very junior, some of them are more senior, but I know who they are. And so I want to encourage those people to stay. I want to reward them. I want to give them the opportunity to fulfill their potential. So I know who those are at my present university. I don't know who those are here. So the first exciting bit of the job will be to go and find out. So you can nurture those people, you can protect them from being stolen by other universities. A lot of that goes on in the UK, particularly in the run-up to the research assessment exercise, which we now call the Research Excellence Framework. So for the last about 12 months, my life has been dominated by trying to steal people from other universities and by having other universities trying to steal my stars. This is something that we deal with all the time in the UK. I don't know how much of that kind of behaviour is going on in Hong Kong at the moment prior to RE next year, but I suspect it's also true here. So you have to protect them, you have to make sure that they're not overburdened with other commitments that stop them from doing their research. You have to reward them. You have to reward them with promotion, you have to reward them with financial reward sometimes, and you have to reward them with esteem and thanks and recognition of their expertise and recognition of their importance to the university. So the first way is to nurture your stars. The second way is to try and recruit more stars. Either junior people that you think have great potential, or more senior people who are already established. You mentioned the Nobel laureate issue. We in Bristol don't have any Nobel laureates either. Currently working in the university, we had previous ones. We have 2 people that we think are potential Nobel laureates, one in my faculty and one in a different faculty. So we're working very hard to try and encourage those, because there's no question that having a Nobel laureate working in your university is good for prestige, good for league tables, particularly Shanghai Jiaotong, but actually other league tables as well. So we recognise the importance of having 1 or 2 absolutely major international stars, because those are the things that get you international recognition. Hong Kong University does have international recognition for some of its work. I think it needs more. I think you can develop some of those from within, and sometimes you can steal them from outside. So I think my targets in terms of supporting research would be those 2 things. Make sure that those people that are already on track to be the stars for the university get the full opportunity. And secondly, selectively trying to identify other people around the world that we might wish to recruit.
Okay, next question, please.
Hello, Professor Matheson. I'm a student from Master of Law in Human Rights in Faculty of Law. I would like to ask, do you support the students to take part in some non-violent civil disobedience, such as Occupy Central? And if the students get prosecuted by the police, would they get expelled from the university?
Okay, thank you. So you'll be pleased to know that Lawrence asked me quite a similar question when he was a member of the selection panel. So I'm going to give you more or less the same answer that I gave him, because he seemed to be satisfied with my answer. So I'm hoping you will be as well. Obviously, I've thought about this a great deal. I know about the importance of Occupy Central. I know about the importance of the issues that underlie it. So I've read about that. I think I understand it. I absolutely strongly support the right to freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And I would defend that personally for myself, and I defend it for the university. So, in principle, yes, I support the right of students and staff to express their opinions. I do also respect the law. And so when you start getting involved in unlawful activities, then it becomes more difficult. And the answer I gave Lawrence is that I would take the attitude of a parent. I have 2 children, similar ages to you, as I said, slightly older. If I got the phone call one morning and said, my son or my daughter has got involved in some trouble, what I would do is I would go and find out what the nature of the trouble was. If they were being wronged and they were being unfairly judged, I would protect them and defend them with all my might. If they've done something seriously wrong and they've committed a criminal offence, I would still want to help them and understand them, but I would find it difficult to excuse them. And I would have to take the attitude of a parent and say, okay, this is my child, I love them, I cherish them, I want to look after them, but I also understand that they've done something that they shouldn't have done. And so that then becomes an issue of providing help and support and protection, but not necessarily excusing their behaviour. And that's exactly the attitude I would take, I think, to any member of student or staff that was arrested. I'd want to understand whether it was just or not. I would want to help them, but I would have to do that in the context of understanding what it is they've done.
Yeah, okay, so next questions?
When I teach the students, I like to walk around. I'm sorry, I get restless, so I don't like standing up there. So if you don't mind, I'll walk around.
Good morning.
Peter.
You call me Hey. I'm just a student, year 2 student from mechanical engineering.
Hi.
I would like to have some questions to ask you. You said that the criminal, it depends on whether the student will violate some sort of criminal activity. But what is right or wrong? And I'm not sure about it. And you said the priority is free speech. But what if you face a quite difficult decision that someone press on you that to do something that is harmful to the free of speech, and if you don't do that, they will take you out of the university. And what will you do?
Do you mean me personally or a student?
I mean, in your decision.
In my decision, okay. So I think it's very difficult to prejudge that kind of situation because every situation is going to be different and there will be different reasons for what's happened, different levels of severity as to exactly what's happened. So it's difficult to give you a general answer that would apply to all situations. But I would want to understand what had happened. I would feel a need to protect the students and staff because I see that as part of my job. But I also, as I say, my fundamental principles include a respect for the law. So it is a difficult balance. And there are some aspects, I mean, sometimes when I drive my car, I drive a bit too fast. So I'm breaking the law. But that doesn't mean that I don't respect the law. If a policeman stops me, I know I'm in trouble. And I have to pay a fine or I have to get penalty points on my license. At the moment, I don't have any penalty points on my license. I just want you to know that. So there are ways in which you push the boundaries of the law. And everybody, I think, does that to some extent. In the defence of freedom of speech and the defence of freedom of expression, those boundaries then can get crossed. And I think one of the issues around public protest, and we saw this in the UK, you'll know about tuition fees. So in the UK we now have a dependence on tuition fees for university study because the government decided to withdraw funding for university education and now students have to pay tuition fees for their education. So, and when that policy was introduced, there were massive protests in a number of cities, including my city, but also the main one was in London. And some of those protests descended into violence and into destruction of property. And one particular student threw a fire extinguisher from, say, a big metal object from the roof of a building down onto people down below. Now, fortunately, nobody was hurt, nobody was killed, but that could have killed somebody. So that kind of action is difficult to defend. So I think it always depends on context. I think the fundamental core value of a university, including this one, is the sanctity of freedom of speech. And I would defend that. If it moves into serious criminal activity, then I think it becomes counterproductive. And the headlines in the UK after that riot were all about the fire extinguisher being thrown off the roof. They weren't about the issue. So actually it was counterproductive. The aim of the people protesting was to try and focus attention on undergraduate tuition fees. Instead of that, it got focused on one act of someone throwing a fire extinguisher. So it can be counterproductive. And you have to think about what you're trying to achieve. I think when the time comes for Occupy Central or any other manifestations of protest, I think it's important to remember what you're trying to achieve and not to do anything that becomes counterproductive and actually stops you from trying to achieve, from being able to achieve what it is you're aiming at.
Okay, next question please. And that one.
Hi, Peter. I'm I'm
Good,
a
you're ready,
student. I'm a year 1 undergraduate student from the Faculty of Social Science. My name is Frankie.
Okay.
So you have a previous experience in University of Bristol. I noticed that. In your CV, somebody mentioned that you have made some reforms in the University of Bristol faculty.
Yeah.
So you said that you want to make things happen in Hong Kong. You want to improve and you want to develop Hong Kong U. So basically, in my opinion, there are 2 ways to develop. One is like to bring the good stuff from the British education to Hong Kong U.
Yeah.
And the second way is to think of new ideas.
Yeah.
So what do you plan on? What good stuffs are you going to bring from the British education back to Hong Kong U, or maybe make Hong Kong U a more international university, or maybe what new ideas do you have to innovate in Hong Kong U?
Okay, thank you very much, Frankie. So, yeah, I mean, I think there are some good things about the British education system. There are also some bad things. So I think, I should bring the good things and learn from the bad things. I'll tell you the question I thought you were going to ask me, but then you didn't, okay? I thought you were going to ask me, because this is something I'm sensitive about, so I'll explain why. So I thought you were going to ask me that you've done all these reforms in the faculty, and you tell us that you've made the faculty a better place, and you've improved its rankings, and you've improved its finances, and all that sort of thing. And yes, I do believe that we've done that, and I think there's lots of evidence to support that. The one thing we haven't really improved, this is what I thought you were going to ask me about, is a thing called the National Student Survey. So in the UK, we have a thing called the National Student Survey, which is completed by final year students. So in my faculty, those are 5th or 6th year students, because we have long courses. And they answer a number of questions about their satisfaction with the course, with various aspects of the course, with various aspects of the university. And in the National Student Survey, medical students particularly tend to score their universities much lower than other disciplines. That's true over the whole country. And within Bristol, our scores in the National Student Survey are not very good. And so I thought you were going to say to me, you've done all these reforms, but you haven't paid attention to student issues. Now, the answer is we have paid attention to student issues. We've worked extremely hard to try and understand what it is that matters to the students and why. When you talk to our students, they all say they're having a great time. They think the university is great, they love the teachers, they all like the dean's fantastic. But yet when they fill out the survey, they don't score us very high. And we think there are a number of explanations for that. So one innovation we've introduced, which I would like to introduce here, is a thing called You Said, We Did. We publish this once a month. So what we do is we listen to the student concerns. We have, in the same way that you do, we have elected student officers, we have sabbatical officers. I'm not sure, Laura, are you a sabbatical officer, Lawrence? Are you studying as well as being president?
Sorry?
Are you studying as well as being president, or do you take time out of your studies to be president?
No.
So you're studying as well?
No, I applied a personal leave when I'm the president.
So our presidents and our student leaders are what we call sabbatical officers. So in other words, they have a year's sabbatical from their studies in order to run the society. Except in medicine and dentistry, where the student societies are not sabbatical officers. So all the students that I deal with largely are also actively studying. But we've engaged with the student societies and we've listened to their concerns. Now, when we publish You Said, We Did, it doesn't mean students saying we want a nice new building and that's what they said and then what we did was build them one. Because sometimes, a new building costs £50 million and that takes me a bit of time. I can't do that necessarily overnight. So sometimes it's, you said you'd like a new building, we said, okay, yes, we agree with you, we'll try and get that, but we can't deliver it quickly. So it's not always meaning that we've done exactly what the student wanted. But what I think it demonstrates is that we understand the students' concerns, we've listened to them, and we've done what we can to try and address them. Sometimes they're very simple things. I mean, for example, our third-year students start moving from the university campus location out to various different places to do their clinical studies. And they complained to us that we didn't give them enough notice of where they were going to be, so they couldn't organise accommodation. So that's a very simple student issue that we just didn't know until they told us. And what we've done is we've now given them a year's notice of where they're going to go for their thing. And they're very grateful for that. So you said we did. You said you needed more notice of where you're going to be placed. We did that. We gave you a year's notice. Now everyone's happy. So I think it's a good way of demonstrating to students, firstly, that we are listening to them and we take their concerns seriously. And secondly, when we can address it, we'll do something about it. So that's the thing I think I would introduce. It's all about consultation, actually. And I think the important message is that students are the lifeblood of the university, so it would be very foolish for the senior team not to take notice of their issues. Doesn't mean they'll always agree with them. Doesn't mean if you throw fire extinguishers off the roof onto a crowd down below, I'm going to say, oh, that's okay. But it also means that we understand from the student point of view what the issues are.
So, next questions?
We've only got an hour.
Hello, Peter.
Hello, there's a microphone to say.
Congratulations. And I'm a student from social science and also a member of PGSA. And I have a question. To some extent, the level of humanization of a university will reflect the quality of the university. So do you think whether or not the Hong Kong University was doing enough for disabled students and mental health training on offer?
Okay. Thank you. I mean, the honest answer is I don't know. I actually don't know the details of what the university is doing for disabled students or for mental health training. So it's an important issue, and I'd like to know the answer. I'd like to know what's behind your question, because I suspect you think that the university is not doing enough. And if that's the case, then clearly that's an important area for us to address. I'm a medical doctor by background, so I have a sort of inherent sympathy for medical conditions and for disability, including mental health. So it would be quite easy for me to say that I understand the issues and I understand the priorities. But the honest answer is I don't currently know what the university does to deal with those issues, and if there is a problem there and if there is something that the university needs to do differently, that could be the first item on my "you said we did" list, couldn't it? Because if you say that we're not currently paying enough attention to disabled issues and then we can fix that, that would be a good example of listening to something that I didn't previously know, and then I can take some action.
Next question, please. The black t-shirt, black t-shirt in the front.
Let me guess, you're from law.
Yeah, sorry. I got it, Peter. I'm a second-year law student from the Faculty of Law, and my name is Kenny. I'm just wondering, you seem to have a lot of experiences in let's say, in the UK and Africa. Nevertheless, I'm just wondering, having been in Hong Kong for twice as an examiner, what do you notice? What are the differences that you notice between Hong Kong students and overseas students in terms of learning styles, etc.?
Of learning styles, yeah. Okay, so this is a really interesting subject. I mean, we have a lot of Chinese students in Bristol. A lot from mainland China, actually, and some from Hong Kong. So I have some experience with them. We don't have very many in my faculty because the numbers of overseas students that we're allowed to take are capped by the government. So we can only take relatively small numbers. So I have some experience with those students myself in terms of my faculty. One of the other faculties in Bristol has very large numbers of overseas students. It's the Faculty of Social Sciences and Law. And so I have some experience of dealing with the dean of that faculty and understanding some of her issues. So I do have some experience of Chinese students in the UK. To get that, then I also have experience in Hong Kong, as you say. So the visiting exams I've done in the Chinese university, one was for Chinese university students doing medicine, the final exams in medicine, and one was for an exam they call the licentiate, which is for doctors from other countries, mostly mainland China, but actually a number of other countries as well, coming to do an exam so that they can practice in Hong Kong. And so I have a bit of experience of both of those, and then I have postgraduate examining experience looking at the theses from this university, so again in my subject largely. I think it's difficult to generalise. I mean, my impression of Chinese students when I examined in the Chinese university was that they were very conscientious. They were very nervous of me because clearly the way they saw me was that I was the person, because I was the external examiner, I was the person that was going to make the ultimate decision of whether they pass or fail. And I was surprised by how nervous they seemed to be. And the one manifestation of this, I mean, the time I did this, the first time I did it, was just after SARS epidemic. And the place we used for the university, for the exams in the Chinese university was a floor of a building that had been prepared as a SARS isolation unit. And so it was a beautiful place to have exams, because in the end it hadn't been needed, so it was beautifully furnished, but it was new and not in use. But because of SARS, everybody was wearing masks. And you know that most Hong Kong students were wearing glasses as well, and a mask, and nervous. And so one of the things I remember is they were all hyperventilating so much that actually they were steaming up their glasses. And there were some students that were so nervous that actually they couldn't really speak. They were so nervous, they were so uptight that actually they weren't able to demonstrate their activity. So I spent a lot of time saying, it's okay, I'm not going to do anything bad, you know, I'm actually, all I want to do is talk to you, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm not going to ask you any difficult questions. And I had to sort of do a lot of reassuring. It would be, although in the UK some students are very nervous, it's not the majority. I mean, most British students are actually pretty confident. And so that's one obvious difference. I think in Hong Kong obviously has become very politicized. Hong Kong is a symbol of the relationship between the West and China. I think that provides fantastic opportunities. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm really interested in the job, because I think it's a really exciting issue. But it does bring challenges. And so obviously for students in Hong Kong University, the whole question of political activity, freedom of speech, and all that sort of thing is much more prominent here than it is in the UK. And I think, as we've heard, it brings challenges. You may get involved in things that bring you into conflict with the law, and then that poses a problem for the university. So I think that's a different dynamic here compared to the UK. I think Chinese, if you make a sweeping generalisation, the students that come to the UK, we regard the Chinese students that we receive in the UK as often being the best students. They're often the hardest working. They're often very concerned about education. They really prize education in a way that sometimes we wish British students would. And Chinese students seem to start off from the viewpoint that education is really important and they want to cherish the opportunity. And I think that's something extremely valuable. And I hope it's also true here.
Hello, Peter. I'm Yvonne from the Hong Kong University Student Union. And what I want to ask is that in this university, rather than academic activities, we have many student society, like hundreds of student society, and they will organize their own activity to serve their student member. And I would like to know, how would you maintain your relationship with the university and also the student society?
Okay. Thank you, Yvonne. So again, I'm quite used to that situation. The student society that I work most closely with in Bristol is called Galedicals, which is the student society for medical students, and they have massive numbers of subgroups and doing all sorts of different things, sporting, artistic, political, sometimes all sorts of things. My attitude really is as follows. I mean, firstly, I respect the independence of those activities. I don't think the university should govern them. I don't think the university should restrict them. And I think the students are very creative about deciding how they want to spend their time and how to organise those activities. And I think that's a really important area for the students to be independent. So I wouldn't want to suppress them in any way. The question I often get asked is, can we have some money, please? And my standard answer to whether it's students or staff is always no, because I haven't got any money. But we do receive requests for funding, and we do prioritise student activities. So we do give some sums of money for student societies to do a particular thing. But in general, I like to leave the student societies to be independent, because I think that's the way they're the most fun. And also there's the most learning for the students in terms of organising their activities, fundraising, all the kind of things that you have to do.
The next question, please.
All right, good morning, Peter. Congrats. I'm Chris. I'm the president of ISEC and HKU at don't know if you've heard of ISEC, it's one of the largest student-run organizations in the world. I have two questions for you. First one is more about the relevance of HKU. The other day in the news, Shanghai is going to be opened up as an economic zone next year. Today in the news, HKU's rankings drops by like 20 on, I think it was the Times.
Times High, yeah.
So I want to ask you, how relevant do you think Hong Kong as a city is, as you said, a bridge between East and the West, and how relevant HKU is as a leading Asian institution? And my second question is, our friend here earlier talked about research, and although I'm a final year undergraduate student, I don't have any data to base my argument on, but I would feel that as an undergraduate student, apart from the faculties focused on professional degrees, it seemed that the other faculties are sort of missing out on some of the resources to prepare maybe business students, art students, for the current economy in Hong Kong and the current working environment, the current skills that are required in the workplace. I think that some undergraduate degrees are really missing out on that. So, do you think? You have a great pedigree in the research field and whatnot, but I would like to hear some of your thoughts on how you can enrich the non-professional undergraduate degrees in HKU. Again, and I'm sure this relates somewhat to HKU's rankings because in today's job market, people are talking about leadership skills, communication skills, the ability to think out of the box, innovation. And do you think that, what are your opinions on this in an undergraduate education context?
All right, so thank you very much, Chris. So, relevance of HKU and preparation for the job market are really the two topics you're talking about. So, the first one, I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't have shown any interest in this job unless I thought Hong Kong and indeed Hong Kong U were very relevant to the world in general and to the region in particular. I think Hong Kong as a community has a massive importance in terms of the westernization, if you like, or the opening up to the outside world of Asia. Hong Kong is beautifully placed to take a leading role in that respect. And everybody, as I said earlier on, everybody in the world is interested in engaging with China. Everyone sees China as the future in terms of economic superpower and in terms of world influence. And so everybody wants to be part of that. So Hong Kong as a community has a fantastic opportunity to capitalize on that. Hong Kong University seems to me is rather symbolic of the relationship between Hong Kong and China and Hong Kong and the rest of the world. Hong Kong University is a place where it has tradition, it has heritage, it has values, freedom of speech, all these things that we've talked about. And the relationship between that history and that heritage and the globalization of Asia is exciting. I think it provides opportunities. Yes, of course it provides challenges and it provides risks as well, but my approach to life is turn every risk into an opportunity, turn every threat into something that you can make into a positive thing. And I think Hong Kong has the chance to do that. So very relevant to the world as a whole, very relevant to Asia, in a unique position in terms of its opportunity to capitalize on the timing. Okay, so if that's all true, why isn't Hong Kong U better ranked in the league tables, and why is it apparently going down rather than coming up? Again, I could talk about league tables for hours if you wanted me to. I mean, it's very... my university has all the same issues. So in the Times Higher that was published this week, Hong Kong U has dropped some places. Bristol has also dropped some places, actually. Bristol hasn't dropped quite as many as Hong Kong U, but Hong Kong U is higher anyway. So you're from a better position, if you like. And we spend a lot of time thinking about league tables. I mean, there's another league table, the QS, which is the Quaker Early Science, which is the other very highly regarded league table, in which both Hong Kong U and Bristol are very highly ranked. In fact, they're very close together. So there's a lot of discrepancies between different league tables. And I think it's really important that no university sets its policies according to the criteria they use for league tables, because the criteria change. They're very different between different league tables. And so what I would suggest is that the university needs to concentrate on its core mission. It needs to promote excellence in teaching and research. It needs to take account of all the issues that we've talked about in terms of engagement with the world and modernization and all these kinds of things. And then if it does all those things well, the league table rankings will follow. I think it's very important that policy is not driven by league tables. It is disappointing that Hong Kong U has fallen some places. There are various explanations for it, and I think it sounds as if you're making excuses if you start analysing the various criteria. Most universities, including mine, and I think including this one, when they're doing very well in the ranking tables, they always say, oh, we don't take any notice of league tables. But when they're doing badly, they suddenly start saying, oh, well, I don't really believe that league table anyway. Or the criteria are based on old data, or there's some other excuse. So there's always an explanation. And I think we need to be very careful not to be led by league tables, but we can't ignore them. They're really important in terms of branding, importance of attracting students and attracting staff. So we have to take notice of them. But if we're doing our job properly and we're promoting excellence in teaching research, then the league tables will follow. About research, and about, you said about preparing students for the workplace, and particularly the non-professional courses, particularly the undergraduates. So one thing that universities have to pay attention to is employability. And all the things that you mentioned, so the kind of non-traditional teaching about communication skills, about surviving in a market, about modern aspects of the workplace. The professional courses, as you say, already have to do that because a lot of the course involves working with that market. So if you take medicine as an example, in the UK, our students learn their trade in the National Health Service, which is where they're going to go and work afterwards. So they get years of preparation of what it's going to be like when they're working, because that's what they've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. Other non-professional programs don't have that opportunity. So I think the answer is for universities to engage with employers and to understand what it is that employers want, and to see whether the course can be modified and the kind of teaching that's provided can be adapted to try and provide those skills. And I think it's a really important priority. And actually it links with league tables, because some of the league tables take employability as one of their measures. So in other words, what's the rate of employment? If you look both immediately after graduation and later, how good are the graduates of this university at getting employment in the workplace? So there's a sort of vested interest for universities to address that. But I quite agree that non-professional programs need to catch up to some extent with some of the professional programs which do it naturally because of the way that the education is provided. So it's an important priority, and I think if Hong Kong is not currently paying attention to those issues, then it's something that needs to be changed.
The last question, please. The red guy.
Hi Peter, I'm Nixon, Science Year 3 student and also a member from regional Male Catholic Hall in Hong Kong. And I would like to I've heard that you talk about the accommodation problem in Bristol, and I would like to know, because in Hong Kong there is a strong hall culture, and about 1/3 of student body are living in hall now. So I would like to know your comment on the hall culture in Hong Kong, and then the role of hall in hall and residential college in university education, as well as how is your plan in cooperating and supporting the development of hall community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I just ask you for a clarification? You said 1/3 of students are living in halls. Is that 1/3 of students altogether, or 1/3 of first years?
1/3 of the total student population.
1/3 of the total population. Okay. So again, it's another example of something that I don't currently know all the facts about, and I would need to understand more about what the facts are, because it's an area that I haven't. I've been given a lot of information about Hong Kong U, and I've found quite a lot of information myself. But I haven't come across much about student accommodation, so it's something that I need to know more about. I think it's a problem for all universities. Clearly in Hong Kong, one of the real limiting factors is the cost of property, the cost of real estate and whatnot. And I think it doesn't only apply to students. If I was asking about research and I said I want to recruit some stars, well, one of the problems about recruiting people is the cost of accommodation here. And as you know, the university tries to address that by providing accommodation for some academic staff. So it doesn't only apply to students. There is a problem here with the cost of accommodation. In principle, what we do in the UK, we try and ensure that all first years have access to halls. And I don't know if that's the same here, but in Bristol, all first years, and indeed all overseas students, are given priority in terms of provision of halls. And because of what's happened in Bristol in the UK in general, actually, in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to increase our student numbers because student admissions have been deregulated. We used to be capped in terms of the number of students we could take. In medicine and dentistry, we still are, But in a number of other subjects, the cap has been lifted, and so actually we can take as many students as we like. And the limiting factor for us is accommodation. So we've actually had to build new buildings and hire new buildings and convert them into accommodation, because you can't take these students. If you're going to have a guarantee of a whole place for first-year students, you can't take them until you've got that accommodation. So I recognise the importance. It sounds to me, actually, if 1/3 of students live in halls, that's actually quite a high proportion. It's higher than I would be used to. But it may be because the availability of rented accommodation or private accommodation is so difficult here. And I think it's something that the university needs to address. If we want to attract the best students, and we want more and more students to come here, we've got to provide them with proper accommodation. So I think it is a priority that I would like to know more about and try and see if we can improve. The last bit of your question was about student hall associations. So these are, again, in my current experience, really important areas of activity. A real place where students can develop leadership skills, management skills, social skills and whatnot. They flourish a bit like the question about student societies. I think they should be largely left alone to be independent. I don't know how it works here, but in Bristol, each hall has a warden, and that warden is usually a member of staff. So there will be some staff leadership, if you like, for hall associations. And I guess, I don't know if it's the same here, but that's the principle that we work on. And one good thing about that is that it provides continuity, because obviously students move on. They tend to only spend 1 year in one place. And so if you don't have some continuity, you may get a whole set of good policies introduced, and then the next person comes in and changes everything. So I think the role of the staff is important in student hall associations. But as an activity, I think they're really important. They can encourage a sense of community. And one of the things that I'm sure you probably all remember when you're first years, when you arrive at university, it's a pretty scary place at first. You know, you're suddenly dumped into a situation where you don't know anybody. You're surrounded by a whole lot of other high-achieving people, and maybe you're used to being the best in your school, and then suddenly you get here and you find that everybody's the best in their school. And it's quite a scary place. And I think the hall associations can address that, welcome students, make them feel more comfortable. So therefore, I think they're a bit of activity that we need to cherish.
So maybe we should end this section. But as the president of Postgraduate Students Association, I also have a question for you, because the PGSA, the Postgraduate Student Association, has conventional events to have a tea gathering with the Vice Chancellor of Hong Kong U, and also will invite distinguished professors, directors of student affairs. So this is to enhance the communication between students and all of you. So I wonder if you will continue this tradition or convention.
How often does that happen?
Once a year.
Okay. If you told me every week, I'd say probably I think that's a bit too much. But yes, in principle, I think that sounds very interesting. And once a year, if that's the frequency that the Student Association wants, then that sounds fine. I would enjoy that. I'd welcome the opportunity to hear about students' issues, because as we've discussed, sometimes they highlight things that I wouldn't previously have known about.
Yeah. In fact, as the president of HKUSU, the union has prepared a letter regarding the expectation to the new Vice Chancellor from HKUSU. And if you are luckily appointed by Hong Kong U, we sincerely hope that can fulfill and reach our expectation to respect the students' voice, to maintain Hong Kong U's independence when you face various pressure from the outsiders, to protect the academic freedom and freedom of speech within Hong Kong U.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll read the letter and I'll do my best.
And I will give this letter to the media too. Maybe they will have questions to you afterwards.
Okay. I'm going to read it quickly then in that case.